That Great Business Show, Ireland's best business podcast.
ThatGreatBusinessShow.com is brought to you by De Facto Shaving Oil, the best anyone can get. Made in Ireland, sold worldwide.
Welcome to episode 99 of That Great Business Show, posting on the 5th of August 2022. Today is National Work Like a Dog Day. No, honestly, I don't know who or how these days are named or chosen, but that is what it is today. Bow wow. Fáilteteach, I am Conal O'Moran. We are still being shown the love on Twitter and on LinkedIn and other social media for having been nominated as Best Business Podcast for the Irish Podcast Awards. And did you know that there's also a public vote for the Best Podcast, the People's Choice? Here's today's top tip. If you Google Irish Podcast Awards and vote for That Great Business Show, then you will be rewarded in heaven for having done a truly great deed. Proud Meathman Tony Sheridan, who has only been in the States for over 60 years, has been on to me to say that his new business centre, sponsored by the local Chamber of Commerce in New London, Connecticut, will be open for business in the coming months. And if your business needs a mailing address, an office or an exhibition centre to show off your goods and services to the US market, Tony will look after you. He's a huge supporter of the podcast. So if you quote That Great Business Show, then the discounts start. Mention Oldcastle, County Meath, and you'll be getting some serious mates rates. I'll post far more on the LinkedIn page as we approach launch. Connecticut really is your home from home for business in the US. And coming up on this episode, we can't resist a cheap headline. So when we saw the word nude in a business name, well, we just had to have them on. And funding, our favourite F word, we'll be having a longish chat with two people who have €100 million to give to your small business. And you'll be surprised what businesses they are interested in. And as always, these great tips and insights are brought to you by De Facto, the world's best shaving oil. Not a beard oil, it's for everyone, man or woman. And because it's only nail varnish sized, it's ideal for packing into your travel wash bag. DeFactoShave.com. Buy it right now.
That Great Business Show, Irish Podcast Awards 2022. Best Business Podcast nominee. De Facto Shaving Oil, smooth as.
Now, dough, gelt, lucre, sponners, moolah, the folding stuff, all names for money, the lifeblood of business. Very early stage companies tap into what entrepreneur John Teeling charmingly called the 3 Fs. When he joined us on the podcast, what he meant was friends, family and fools. Now, when you've drained the family coffers and you still need more bread to keep going, then you need to tap into sources a bit further up the food chain, like venture capitalists. And no, they aren't just for big companies. VCs like getting into the investment lift on the ground floor, just like everyone else. On this episode, we have two newish members of the Elkstone Partners team. They have recently raised a €100 million fund to talk us through who can get hold of their pot of gold and how you can grab a stash of that cash. Carl Murray and Kate Fullen of Elkstone Partners, welcome to That Great Business Show.
Thank you very much. What a good intro. From the bottom floor, it's exactly how we like it.
Well, I'll tell you this much. You obviously knew today was Work Like a Dog Day, did you?
Carl's all about it.
Yeah, Kate's just back from annual leave, so...
Who comes up with this horse? And actually, speaking of working like a dog, tell the truth, Kate Fullen. Where were you a few hours ago?
I'm just off the plane from Marrakesh, I must admit.
Literally.
Well, I was up at 4 a.m. for a flight to get back from my working day. Work like a dog day, you know, didn't pass me by.
That is what we need. I also see in Elkstone that we had Andrew Lynch on our previous podcast, and he is part of Elkstone team as well.
Yeah, he's part of our venture advisory board, so we've kind of a couple of people who are kind of part of a board that help, I suppose, us in general in the ecosystem in Ireland and kind of work with our portfolio companies as well. So Andrew's one of the guys that's on the team.
And Elkstone, which I haven't really kind of delved into much, is growing like topsy, as the term goes. When you joined, Kate, how many people were working there?
So I joined nearly to the week 2 years ago. think I was number 14 or 15 at the time, and we were starting to build up our team. I think now we're in and around 48 people, if I'm right.
That is a big jump.
It's a big jump.
In 2 years.
But you have to remember, there's lots of stuff going on under the hood in Elkstone. So we're not just venture, we're also real estate, we're family office. So, wealth management for our family office clients, building all across those verticals.
And I did look onto the website, very obviously, and because I had to start somewhere, and because of the nature of the podcast, what I'm going to concentrate on is who you're looking for, who can get money from you, what you don't want, and all of the above. So rattle on there. You guys do talk amongst yourselves for the while.
Well, I think it's worthwhile maybe starting off just on the venture side of the business. I suppose the different pools of capital that we have. So we have the aforementioned fund, which is
100 million. You were looking for 75 and you got 100.
Yeah, so we've closed had the first close at 75, so we're on the way to 100. So
I read I said 100, so your PR is very good.
but I suppose that's purely for Irish businesses at the kind of seed and pre-A stage.
And seed, let's talk seed, because as I said,
an elusive term.
Friends, family and fools is the very, very beginning.
Yeah.
So you're going to make a better bucket or whatever. Now, if you survive the first couple of months and you run out of cash, then you move into the seed round. Seed used to be 250,000, maybe 500,000. What is seed to you guys?
We're seeing large seed rounds. I would say, what have we seen recently? 3 to 5 kind of million at the top end in terms of a seed round. Typically they have been smaller though. Yeah.
Yeah,
right,
and we will do, we always say kind of somewhat jokingly, but we'll do something from a scrap of paper to, something that's raising 5 million. Now it's the bar is much higher if it's a scrap of paper, but
hang on a second, here's the scrap of paper since you're offering.
There's nothing on that scrap of paper, that's about. But no, I suppose definitely with kind of the going advice from VCs at the moment is raise at least 2 years runway. So that's why you're seeing a lot of seed startups raise bigger rounds.
Except in the US, because I am relatively familiar with this, it's gone down again in a big way. So it's a fashion business.
Yeah, I suppose, but to Carl's point around the runway piece, like the funding environment is just really tricky at the moment. So it's about having that plan to say, we can get 24 months out of our capital. People want to see capital efficiency. I think you're right in saying in the US, maybe smaller rounds, but I think there's a lot more of a focus on a path to profitability, capital efficiency than there would have been in the past. People want to see that now. I feel like it was actually a bit unfashionable to be looking for a path to profitability at some stage, because it was like, how quickly are you going to grow and be, burning. But there's just a bit of a switch in focus now, which we're definitely seeing.
It's the later stage rounds as well. And what Kate was saying there, in the US, the companies you would have read about 2-3 years ago that were raising, phone book size rounds at even bigger valuations, they're, I suppose in difficulty at the moment because they're trying to raise a round that and justify the valuation that they previously raised it at.
Well, that's not happening at all. I mean, Klarna has gone from 45 down to 7 or something, a massive drop anyway.
And that's a really good example of what has happened and kind of what maybe some later stage startups are going through. Whereas, at the seed stage, when we're, I suppose, investing in a company, let's say we're investing at 10, we think that business can be worth
10 million euro, that is.
Yeah, 10 million.
In case 10 doesn't mean anything.
10 million euro can be potentially worth $1 billion. So it doesn't matter whether you begin at 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, the upside is, I'm not good at maths. Yeah. That's why I'm a good adventure. So it's an interesting time to be raising money.
And we'll take it from either which side. What are you expecting realistically? I mean, obviously everybody wants the 10 million becomes a billion type of jump. But realistically, what's the return that you're looking at for Elkstone over 3 to 5 years per investment? What do you need to justify your own existence?
We model it out as looking at a 10x. So when we're bringing something...
10x, we don't use acronyms here. 10 times.
A 10 times multiple on our money. So, whatever our entry point is, we want to see a 10 times
tenfold.
Tenfold. Nice. Okay, we'll say tenfold.
Increase over 5 years?
Well, typical venture timeline is 5 to 7 years, say. Okay. So we wouldn't be as prescriptive. The companies we invest in are very, very different. So it can depend, but call it 5 to 7 years. And when we're looking at that, we're also taking into consideration the fact that, this company, we hope, is going to go on and raise larger rounds of capital after us. So we're also taking into consideration that we're going to be diluted down as more people come in. So that feeds into our multiple. We're looking for the tenfold return, but equally we'll take into consideration what we think is going to happen down the line in terms of where we get diluted to, what our percentage ownership of the company becomes, and then still looking for the 10.
And what is the smallest investment at the moment that you are making? Is it $500,000 or will you go lower?
So the fund, is for, I suppose, as I said, seed and pre-A. So the lowest we do is 500 grand. But I suppose the minimum kind of check size we've done so far is $1 million for seed, but half the fund.
That's the sweet spot, $1 million.
But I suppose the half the fund as well is kind of in the background for follow-on. So as Kate mentioned, if we, let's say, back a company now, it goes really well, we'll want to add to our position in that business. And the other thing, and you asked it earlier on, is, like time of exit. I suppose one of the issues that Irish companies, it's a good issue, have had is that maybe exiting a little bit early. And I suppose there's a sweet spot again of maybe 5 to 7 years where the business has really gotten to the stage where it's peak value for the promoters, and that's obviously very good for early investors like ourselves as well. So having that kind of additional capital allows us to, I suppose, push the business on a little bit. And then in the club, which is kind of we use for our later stage Irish deals, so that kind of A on. Series A on, that is, and for international deals we've done as low as 250k and as much as 8 million. So it's very depends on the opportunity, depends on what's available.
And you're sitting around the board table talking amongst yourselves. What are you looking for? What kind of companies are you ideally looking for? What's the next big thing?
Well, industry-wise, it's probably a bit difficult because we are sector-agnostic investors. So
that means, in other words, they don't care.
We care very much more. Like, we want to see it all. So if you look at our portfolio to date, we have companies ranging from drone delivery, which is Mana, Bobby Healy, to the likes of Flipdish, to the likes of Let's Get Checked, to Protex AI, which is in the...
They're coming onto the programme.
Are they really?
Podcast, they are, yeah.
They'll be great guests for you. So and they're a great example of, us investing quite early. No.
We had Conor O'Loughlin on, and I'm delighted to see that
he's had
his 10x and some.
And some is right.
So I'm delighted for him. So anyway, there's a broad range of companies, because were I to go to the States or possibly the UK, there are funds that just specialise in whether it's AI or manufacturing or whatever, correct?
Yeah, correct. But we're broad investors, but there are things that underpin all of the investments that we do, or the vast majority, I should say, because we always find exceptions. But we're looking for, firstly, tech-enabled businesses. Secondly, capital light. So to that previous point around, if you're going to raise money, how efficient can you be with that money? Where can that get you to in terms of traction, revenue, etc.?
I have to ask you this, because the big spend in an early stage company, there's an overhead, fine. But what about the salaries? What does Elkstone say to people when they are looking for a large salary, which is going to be drawn out of the money that Elkstone gives them? Do you say that, to use that old Irish euphemism or term, get up the yard?
I don't know where as prescriptive as that, but it does depend on the stage of the company. But I think if we understood that there were really large salaries being drawn from the company, from the founders, we'd definitely be asking questions about the mindset of those founders and whether we have true alignment. We genuinely would be, because, our money's going in alongside theirs. We want it to be used in the best way possible.
What you're saying is that there's no easy money there, so I've given up on that one. We'll try again. We'll try something else.
The other thing as well is, I suppose one of the things we will ask is, someone might have a mortgage or kids or dependents or whatever, and, it's a case by case. And if it's just, it's pretty obvious if someone's just trying to take a massive salary out. Yeah. But if they're like, look, this is why, that's totally reasonable. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, usually the upside for the founders is in obviously their shareholding, but they need to also have a life in the interim. And it's no point in kind of being, I suppose, penny wise now.
And there was a time when Irish companies had to go either, well, first of all, they're backed by EI as a start. And then they went to the UK or probably over to the States, particularly over to San Francisco. But that is not happening as much now, is it? Is that?
Well, we want them to be coming to us first.
That's what I mean. And that was kind of my corollary question is, what are you doing to attract them in? Obviously, you're coming onto that great business show.
Well, listen.
Did you know that we're at Best Business Podcast? Ah, of course you did. But you were away for that.
Congratulations.
But in trying to attract them in, is it hen, egg? Who's bringing you to them or them to you, or where are they finding you? Are people making introductions and?
I think it's a really good question, and it kind of, if I can stem off the answer to the last question in terms of what we look at, those core three things. The third is the founding team. So it's all about the founders for us, and we're wanting to build relationships with people. We often meet people who are at too early of a stage for us, if they have an idea stage, and they might come to us for a conversation. And that's through referrals very often.
And that conversation, literally now, how does that happen? Somebody, John Smith, Mary Smith, comes into you, they sit down, and are you sent down to say, oh, Jesus, those people are in again? Have a chat with them, or how does it work?
Well, it very much depends. So it depends on what stage they're at with their company. Most of the conversations, I should say, that we have are people coming in who are at the stage of raising funds, and they want to come in, and they will have sent us their deck in advance. We will have reviewed the deck, and we'll come into the conversation pretty prepared with wanting to dig into the areas that we have particular questions about. And that's most of the conversations will start like that. Mostly an introduction, getting to know each other, us understanding their ambition.
Smelling them. Basically,
yeah, flirting is how one of the guys on our team describes it.
Is that what you do? It's called. But the first call is always just it's not really a call, but it's 30 minutes.
Yeah,
phone call.
So we just use Zoom.
Video.
It's easier. We can get through it.
Yeah. Now on the deck, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, you're talking about basically about a PowerPoint presentation. I'm sometimes sent decks for review. I mean, people seem to want to put the Bible onto the deck. What do you look for?
Well, this is it. It's. I would say, I don't like hard and fast rules, so I'm going to give you some here, and you can. But
do with them what you will.
Between 12 and 15 slides max. I'd say a max of, like, I always think about it like it's 10 or 12 billboards about your company, so they should be illustrative as much as possible. And I suppose conscious of the reader. Venture capitalists are lucky. They see lots of decks, so they're looking for something to catch their eye. Now, we'll obviously read it properly and look through it, but if you make the job easier for the reader, it's best. And I think give enough information, but also leave a little bit that the reader goes, God, actually, I'd like to know a little bit more. And
give them a hook.
Get them on the call. Yeah, there's always a hook, and that's kind of the key thing. And we see is, and the point you made is sometimes people, because they're passionate about their business and they want you to know absolutely everything, they try and put it all in there. But I'm no advertising genius, but it's crafting it in the right way that, makes it very, very clear what the problem is and why you guys are the team to fix it. And like I said, we'll always take a call. We'll always take a call with somebody because we're keen to meet you, and it mightn't be for us now, but in the future we could be investing. How many decks a week do you see? I would say 30. Oh, Jesus. And how frequently do you say after 2 minutes, I still have to spend another 30 minutes going through this, please? Well, I don't know how, we've become pretty good at reading decks, I must say, but equally there are areas within our team that some people, have more passion for than others. It might be an area that one of us thinks, I'm not the person to get excited about this company. And getting excited is the right phrase to use, because genuinely someone needs to come into the room having met a company, gone through the deck and met them and feel excited about the opportunity. It's often like a barometer that we use sometimes. So we might be saying, Brady on our team, this is the one for you. I think you'll like this more than me. And that's a way for us to make sure this gets the right attention also. And on a PowerPoint presentation, when the pitching company is saying, we are going to go from 10 to 100 overnight, is that bull? Do you say, go away, I don't... I think the key thing is, I was thinking of this on the way here, it's in a founder, you're looking for a blend, and it depends on the situation on a daily basis, between a pragmatic accountant and the Messiah. It's somewhere in the middle, right? And it's kind of, you want someone who comes in. I have to think about that, on the Messiah. When I say Messiah, in terms of that messianic vision of this will be the next Stripe or Flip Dish or whatever. And I think, did you guys own a bit of Stripe?
No.
No. Do you know, I'd love, if you have any spare, I'd like some if you wouldn't mind. But
Jamie Houston was working down there. He probably has a few.
he might have a few.
A few in his pocket.
But I think
Mm.
the key thing is people, we look for international problems. So it's not just a problem in Ireland, it's a problem that you can fix internationally. So that's that big picture.
But aren't you lucky that Enterprise Ireland, EI, has already done some of that sifting for you, because they won't back anything that's not going international
100%.
anyway. Yeah.
It's a great hunting ground for us.
Yeah.
And to your previous point around how do we meet these people, we keep very close contacts with EI, and Niall, who's on our team, was at EI for 20 odd years. So we're
Ex the HPSU unit. He was there a long
20
time.
total, yeah. He had his interim period where he went off and built his own company and then came back, but over the space of 20 years.
So he
I believe.
knows what's going
Niall
on
can
out
clarify.
there. Now, so you then, because you know what's going on there, you can now tell me, how good is the wide ecosystem for startups in Ireland at the moment?
I think it's so interesting to track how it's changing. To your point around Stripe, and do we own a piece of Stripe? Like, they went straight to the US and they didn't stay in the Irish market, which I think is always a really interesting kind of story to look at in terms of where the Irish ecosystem has been and where it's going.
You sound bitter and twisted that you could have been, it should have been us.
I don't think
Kate
so.
was like 14 when they went to I think you were 14 when they went to, which is mad.
But I think like there's lots of factors in the Irish ecosystem now that are changing what it's like to build a business in Ireland. I actually recently there was at Dublin Tech Summit, there was a VC over from, I think he's living in London maybe, and he was describing it as he thinks Ireland's the new Estonia, and he was describing all the different unicorns that come out of Ireland as these kind of little universities for people to learn how to build companies. And I think it's important from that operational perspective, but equally from the kind of visionary perspective of people building venture backable businesses, meaning there's lots of people building really great businesses and have been building really great businesses, but we're looking for the outliers that are these venture backable with that kind of vision for scale type companies. And I think having those, kind of some of the success stories coming out of the Irish market is changing people's mindsets in terms of the type of companies that can be built out of Ireland. And equally, to your point around Enterprise Ireland kind of sowing the seeds at the base level, and equally the likes of Dog Patch with the different accelerators, now more regional, which is fantastic. I flew down to Kerry on the plane the other day to go to the RDI hub. They were doing their
carbon emissions.
They were doing their pre-accelerator out of Kerry, which is great. Just seeing the kind of spread across. I mean, I think often we look at Dublin as the ecosystem in terms of how are we doing in terms of entrepreneurship, but NDRC, Dog Patch are doing a great job of tying all the different regions together.
And you've got Nova and UCD, and you've got Trinity, and you've got actually a very nice one which we've had down here is Ignite up in Belfast.
Yes.
Yeah, they're great.
Stephen McPeak and Civic Dollars, or I like to call it Dingo Dollars. He doesn't seem to like that from me. But I mean, it is rocking. But is it going up in terms of quantity of good companies, or is it static, or going down? Is it in out of fashion? Where is it at?
It's definitely. It's dramatically improved, and like EI have been, I suppose, at the forefront of that because they've been writing checks for years when no one else would at a time, or when there was very few people to write checks. And it's definitely moving in the right direction. I think there's two reasons for that. One, it's a flywheel effect. So you think of all of the successful Irish companies there has been to date. Those people, when they exit, you think of Glowfox recently, will go on to found businesses in Ireland, hopefully, and fund businesses in Ireland. And I think if you use the Estonia example, I'm pretty sure Skype is Estonian. And I think the guys who, or there's Skype or somebody else.
I think they're Norwegian or something.
I know that, yeah.
Anyway, for those who don't know Estonia was. They had no tech or digital, and they said we're going digital, and they took it hook, line and sinker.
Yeah.
And they just
highest number of unicorns per capita in Estonia, but we're coming for them.
Yeah. So a bit like Ireland's only getting started, and so is Elkstone. So what I would say, that's definitely a thing. And so the second thing is capital. The reason Silicon Valley is there is such a concentration of capital there. So we have our fund, and there's other people in the market who've raised funds recently as well. That's good for Ireland Inc. and it's good for startups because normally the phone rings and it's one of the other VCs in Dublin, and their fund is kind of tapped out, and they're saying we need someone to write a check for this. So a rising tide, all boats, etc. And that's what's important for Ireland Inc.
When they ring you with an offer like that,
well, they don't ring me because...
Please understand that is a hospital pass.
It's not always.
Because if it's good, they will take it themselves. They'll borrow, beg, steal the money.
Funny enough, though, because what happens is funds get tapped out, and they can put something into it, but they can't lead the rein. So they actually need. So there is a bit of.
They can't take up their pro rata, but equally, a big value add for venture firms as investors is saying, we'll be there to help you build out your next funding round. And we speak to that as well. Like, we're all about preparing companies for their next funding round and trying to join the dots in terms of who internationally can we link them up with or domestically. So it is a thing.
Because you listen to That Great Business Show, you know that we've had Brian Caulfield on, and who was telling us all about Molten Ventures and all of that good stuff. How would you differentiate yourselves from a Molten Ventures or a other one?
I suppose Molten's obviously a great investor, and I suppose the key thing that our selling point at the moment, or one of them, is kind of the role we play on the founder journey. So we've hired Martin Cass from Barclays and the Techstars Accelerator. Martin's job primarily is obviously involved in the investment decisions as a partner, but is to work with founders. And I suppose we're obviously a founder-led business with Alan, Rory and Kieran in Elkstone. So they're very conscious of that journey. And as you're saying, the kind of friends and family and ringing your aunt. And fools. Well,
don't forget that.
and the fools. So very conscious of that journey. And I suppose Martin is there to assist our portfolio and the founders of our portfolio in that journey. And it might be obviously directly related to business, or it might be, somewhat related to business, more so related to something else going on in their lives. And I think that's really, really important. I think, look, every VC says founder journey, founder friendly. But I think when it really comes down to it, I think we really are. I think we're very reasonable and generally do have kind of a win-win for us and the founder at heart.
Another thing we are focused on as well is board working. So really helping companies to leverage their board as best as possible. It's not, people run their boards to different degrees of effectiveness, and it's something we're focused on. To your previous point around, we have Andrew Lynch on our venture advisory board. We also have Orla O'Gorman there, who's fantastic, and she's, specialises in helping companies to get their board up and running. And we like to play a role on the board as well. So not having a reporting type board, but one where you can go to and actually make strategic decisions and, get people around the table to deliver more impact for you. So about formalising that process as well. And then to the previous point around, next round readiness, getting people geared up towards looking at where the next funding round is coming from, what kind of introductions we can be making on that journey, and helping them to kind of reach those international investors, because we do have that existing portfolio through the club that Carl mentioned. So, over the space of the last 6 years or so, there's 45 companies in there.
It's a lot.
Lots of them. Lots of them have raised internationally with some of the biggest, VCs in the world. So we're pretty tapped into a lot of great networks in a lot of the cities around the world. So that's another piece that we bring to the table.
A couple of last questions, because we are going to come to the last few questions. One of them is, in raising funds, say 75 going 100 million, where are those funds originally coming from? Who's supplying the cash on that side?
So I suppose we're a little bit different. We have one institutional investor, which is EI. They're obviously underpinning a lot of funds in Ireland, but the rest of our LPs are all individuals. So again, it's one of our
limited partners, LPs. They're not actually long playing records or something. You two wouldn't even know what an LP was.
No, I do. I don't know if Kate does, but so that's one of our, I suppose, our Kate spoke about the kind of network compounding
but is the money coming from Ireland or from overseas?
It's primarily Irish founders. So people would have exited businesses, entrepreneurs, and again, Kate spoke earlier on about value add. So if we invest in a business and they do something, we'll probably have an LP who knows something about that industry and can make some connections. And I suppose that's really valuable for us.
Smart money, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think people are really generous with their time as well, and like it involved in startups, which is quite interesting.
Well, it's really a fascination, and it is so true. And I've been working in the area for a long, long, long time, and I always notice that people, I don't know whether it's nosiness or whatever, but they actually like helping. For free, for nothing, because they just like the area or whatever. Now, the other one of the very last questions, because there'll be a few of them, is This is the big ad opportunity for you.
Okay.
What are you looking for? Who would you start? Who'd like ringing the Elkstone phone number or whatever?
Who would we like to start ringing the Elkstone phone number?
In terms of businesses, types, sectors. What's your favourite?
I think that's a really tricky question because, as I said, we love to look at everything. I think if we look at some areas that we think will be in the fund, I think we'll have something kind of sustainability related, I would think, over the space of our fund. I'd love to think that we might do something in the healthcare space that's female focused. There's lots of great companies that we're starting to see internationally and out of Ireland that are focused on that niche. It's a really, really interesting space.
How many businesses, women-led businesses, are you backing?
In our portfolio to date? I wouldn't have that number to hand.
Percentage-wise? Is it small? It must be.
We have quite a lot of female founders in our portfolio.
Because you know that we have 50-50 gender parity on this business podcast.
Love that. Here we are, 50-50 on the table.
But that is important to me.
We've got a lot of female founders in our existing portfolio.
I wanted the pair of you here because just to show people that there is gender parity in your business as well.
Yeah, it's
because
a really
people
important.
Can talk to you.
It's a really important point, actually. And like our whole team is really focused on this, men and women, in terms of trying to see enough and support enough female-founded businesses and building out our team to have more females on the team. Really important. But I would love to see some female founders calling my phone for sure. I think we all would, definitely. And we love to see companies that have a really good combination of founders. You know, we support sole founders also, but we love to see, you know, a really deep technical type person with a complementary, you know, commercial head. That, you know, skill set match up. We love that. We love that.
Yeah, that's too good of an answer for me to follow. But I suppose my general point is, look, I said it earlier on, as simple a problem that's explainable to a 10-year-old and a solution that's even better explained to an 8-year-old. And why you're the guys to do it. That's it. International problem. Don't care really what it is necessarily. If it's for the better of the world or for people, even better. That's the key thing.
And ever, I will be doing things about this because there's obviously a big area of growth is the metaverse. Can either of you explain the metaverse to me?
I'm not even going to try and embarrass myself. We have actually looked at different metaverse investments already. There are creeping in, and look, my personal view, look, Mark Zuckerberg's bet the house on it. And
he's got a very big house.
He's got a few bob in the bank, but I think it will be. I think Apple have goggles coming out in January, and I think the big thing we always discuss internally is how do I access the metaverse? And you can't understand. It's a bit like saying, how do I access Facebook before a computer existed?
Yeah.
And I think once there's goggles, it'll just take off. And before we know it, it'll be like, how did you miss the metaverse? So.
And I know a little bit about this. They're not going to be these big, weird goggles here. They're actually going to look like glasses. At last. They're going to make sense. Now, am I a fan? Who knows? We haven't done it yet. But it is happening.
There's lots of really interesting stuff happening. People building for problems that we don't, you know, most people don't yet know exist because they're problems within the metaverse. I mean, that's really interesting.
From meta to med, because we will, in coming programs, I think in 2 or 3 programs out, we're going to have a med tech special with Professor Martin Curley. He's coming back to us. He did episode 90, and he is going to transform the Irish medical system. A lot of people don't believe it. We believe it. But he's also bringing in the Irish med tech companies, probably some of your own investments, and some of them are wild, like how brilliant they are.
Yeah.
So that's you better listen to the podcast.
I absolutely will. I'll be tuning in.
One to mention is definitely Luminate as well, and let's say Krivov. Like we've 2 really interesting ones,
really great ones.
Yeah, really worth speaking to as well. I suppose Luminate's worth mentioning just in terms of, you know, talking about solving a problem.
Yeah, they're a fantastic company.
What do they do?
They're creating a device to prevent hair loss for chemotherapy patients.
Is this Galway?
Yeah, basically.
We've had them on.
Spun out of NUIG.
We had them on about 18 months ago.
Oh, really?
And they're a great diverse team.
Yeah.
Barbara, Andrew and Martin, they're a fantastic team. We get to work closely with them here and there, so that's a great benefit. You should listen back for kind of historically, because you see whether he actually delivered on whatever he said. I trust Aaron. I don't need to listen.
It was Aaron who was here. Actually.
Should get Barbara on too. She's excellent.
Now, the final question is, as you probably know, is who would you hire in a heartbeat? And I want both of you to answer separately.
Absolutely.
Kate asked me on the way here what mine was, and I wouldn't tell her. So
I know.
I think she
Stephen's
was
lips sealed.
lobbying to be included.
Let's go, Carl. So,
Okay, so mine is my godmother, Pat. She is a nun for the Loretto service, and she works, or sorry, the Loretto sisters. She works in Rome. So as I have described since I was a kid, she's, as I described, a business nun. So she's involved kind of in running charities and has an incredible skill set, is an amazing person, and has had, I'd say, arguably the most fascinating life of anyone ever met.
now her name is Sister Pat.
Sister
what?
Pat Murray.
Murray. And does she, I presume she doesn't use LinkedIn, because we like to link people on LinkedIn to the podcast.
I think she does.
Oh, brilliant.
And I'm meeting for dinner
That'll be
on
a
Saturday,
first.
so I'll be able to tell her. But
You'll have the actual, the entire podcast by Saturday.
well, there you go. So maybe she'll pay for dinner if she hears what I said. but I suppose she started off in a closed convent in the 60s, and she was in Davos in April. So that's
That is
kind of the
cool.
life she's lived.
All right.
So it's pretty phenomenal.
Well, if you're having dinner with her on Saturday, will she be in Ireland?
Oh yeah.
Well, we'd like to have her onto the show. Beside being a long time since I interviewed a nun. That'd be really
Yeah, well,
odd
I'll
one.
have to
That's a
mention
great
it.
A
idea.
business nun.
Well, business nun,
business
I
nun.
always say that she always laughs. Now, I hope she doesn't mind me saying it. I've been saying it since I was 8. But when you say nun, people think, oh, she's a nun and whatever. It's like, but she's had the most incredible career, and is more like kind of a founder of a startup, I think, than anything else, which is pretty interesting.
Okay, well-
it's a long story, but her being in Davos recently kind of explains the overarching thing about it.
Kate, who would you hire in a heartbeat?
This is so funny because you just brought up Luminate, but we often talk about the companies that we're looking at as, we ask the question of, would I want to work for this founder? And I suppose this is the reverse of it. And I was actually going to pick the Luminate team. There are 3 of them, but they're just fantastic founders, totally visionary, complementary skill sets. As I said, I trust them to deliver. They're fantastic founders, and I would definitely hire them in a heartbeat.
Would they hire you?
Well, you have to ask them that question, get them back on the podcast and ask.
Typical venture capitalist, budget for one person, hires 3. That's the
No, that's allowed. We always say, if you need an extra, that's fine. So that's
you.
cool.
I'm in the clear. Contrast, a nun and some people changing the
super
changing
team.
the That'd be an
Super
amazing team.
Super team.
So if anybody wants money, their names are Carl Murray and Kate Fullen. They don't own the money, which is even better. They'll give it away. It's Elkstone Partners, and they are in Dublin and in Galway. How come you've got an office in Galway?
Got our team growing in Galway, actually. We have Joe Bergen. He's a GAA superstar. Any people from Galway will know him. He's a hero down there. But he's been based in our Galway office for the last number of years, and we've just got 2 new team members down there also. So the Galway team, and then we have a space in Cork. Actually, also we're doing we have a project ongoing
That's
down
not
there.
up on your website at the moment.
Listen, it's top secret information. You heard it here first. That's why this is the best business podcast.
Hey, you're allowed back. And you are going to vote. Irish
Are you joking?
Podcast Awards.
I have my phone ready
Best
to go.
Business Podcast. No, sorry, just That Great Business Show. That's all you have to say. That Great Business Show. Carl Murray and Kate Fullen, Elkstone Partners, thank you so much for joining us on That Great Business Show.
Thanks very
Thanks
much.
a
Thank
million.
you.
Everyday accounting can be a bit of a drama for SMEs. However, BigRedCloud.com takes the drama away with its simple and easy to use cloud-based accounting and payroll software designed for SME owners. Raise and send invoices, manage VAT reports and obligations, run management reports, link directly to Irish banks, automatically import purchase invoices, and so much more. All with 5-star customer support. BigRedCloud.com, 100% Irish owned and a proud member of Team GBS.
Viscosity. When you shave, you want the highest viscosity because it helps the blade run smoother. De facto, the world's best shaving oil, has incredible viscosity. That's why De facto leaves your face, underarms, or legs nick-free. Higher viscosity makes blades last longer. De facto is the best for your skin and your pocket. DeFactoShave.com.
All That Great Business Show advertisers are Team GBS approved. Back them.
We're all guilty of it. We always think that the other people's businesses are dead handy, an easy way of making a living. Only the other day I was talking to a recently retired businessman who had been on a break in Portugal, where he decided it would be very nice to import Portuguese wine into Ireland. Now, from previous shows, When we had companies like Box of Wine on the podcast, I know this is just not so. It is far, far more difficult than that. I gave my friend both barrels. So, for all of you who may be daydreaming of a handy little number during your break from the real business, we thought we'd invite Michelle Lawler to join us. Michelle established the Nude Wine Company in 2019 and did a Back for Business course with our ace Women in Business champion, Paula Fitzsimons, who recommended Michelle to us most highly. So, no pressure then. Michelle Lawler, welcome to That Great Business Show.
Hello. Great to be here.
Tell me, the man of whom I speak, who was in I think he was up somewhere in Portugal anyway, and there was a vineyard next door, and he decided it was a great idea to import wine into Ireland. What are you saying to him? Saying being the current or the present tense.
So the present tense is there's a great I would say saying or joke in the wine industry. How do you make €1 million in the wine industry?
I've heard this one. Start with 2 million or 10
You start with 10.
Yeah.
Goes right down.
But that's not why you are in the business.
Yeah, it's the only thing I've ever done. People say, how long you at it? And I'm like, 20 years. And the answer, the polite answer, God, you must have started when you were 10. I didn't. It's the only thing I've ever done. And I just loved it. It took me all around the world. Came back to Ireland in 2017. And having been around the world and back again, and I didn't see anyone talking about wine the way I like to talk about it, which is just a normal language. Because I would say to people, it's just a drink. Do you know?
We've had a class of wine on the show as well, one of the earlier shows. There are many articles on newspapers. You do Virgin Media, correct?
I do the wine, the live wine tastings there. So
and there is, for sure on News Talk. There
Movies
is
and booze.
Yeah. There are lots.
Yeah. There are lots of people talking about wine, and it always kind of defaults back to this kind of old, view of this tastes like Christmas dinner on a summer's evening, and what does that actually taste like or even mean? And I just found when you simplify everything and make it easy to understand and fun, you just broaden the net, first of all, and you just make people, you get people excited in a different way. And rather than the classic answer is when I go to someone's house, the first thing they'll say is, if you're going for dinner, well, I don't know anything about wine, so I hope you like this. And I might joke, but I don't know anything either. But anyway, but the thing is, it's a view that you have to know stuff to know stuff. You have to be in the club to be in the club. And in actual fact, it's just a drink. And I suppose we do wine made easy. We'd say great wine, no notions.
But you have, as I explained to my friend, the businessman, you have competition from Lidl, from Aldi, from Tesco, from Dunn's, from SuperValu, from O'Brien's, from the corner store, from your Centra, from your Mace. You have, every corner shop has wine.
Yeah.
How do you make a living?
So what happened during COVID, the business started just before COVID. So people weren't going out. People were afraid to get delivery. People were afraid to go into a shop. And so they would order a box of wine. And whatever that would be for minimum order for free delivery. So you might get 6 bottles or 12 bottles or however much you were ordering. And
roughly speaking, average price per bottle?
I would say our average price is that we'd sell between 14 and 16.
So not cheap, but not expensive.
Exactly. And in actual fact, it's a lot of people want, or we've certainly found over COVID, and it's maintained, because they wanted something a little bit nicer, a little bit different, jaded from the same wines that have been on the shop shelves for a decade.
Does anybody actually realise? This is not the first time that I've used this phrase. There's a guy called Ernest Hemingway, of whom you may have heard, and he famously said that he didn't care what was on the label so long as it told him how drunk it would make him.
Oh, sure. I'll tell you a couple of things. So rather than, and I started working at Oddbins in Clontarf for anyone, and there's just quite a lot of people who will be in that catchment area. And I used to have this fella come in, and it was back in the day when you'd get 3 for a tenner. And there was always these offers, 3 for a tenner. And he'd say, what is the highest percentage alcohol I can get for the lowest price? And sure, I remember going around, I'd say I was 18, turning all the bottles around to try and help this fella get his. And there's a 0.5% you don't have to declare. So I was kind of thinking, okay, well, it's 14.5 from South Africa. There's probably 0.5% in that as well. So you'll get your 15% bottles for a tenner. But what we found with delivering 6 bottles of wine or 12 bottles of wine, by the time you had made your way through the case or the box, because all of ours are produced by artisan winemakers, there's very little in it. It's actually 13 ingredients in a bottle of wine, but there'd be very little artificial things. There'd be lower sulfur.
I thought you meant there was very little profit margin.
No. Well, there's very little. It's fast-moving consumer goods. But they'd drink their box of wine and they'd realise that they didn't feel terrible. They didn't have a hangover. They didn't get that Prosecco hangover. And for the sake of €1.50, which is probably what you're looking at, €2 extra, what you might normally buy, people felt like they felt amazing the next day. People say it all the time. Jesus, I actually felt great after my bottle of wine, as opposed to being used to the Prosecco hangover, which comes from bits of extra sulfur. And I would say this, I do a lot of virtual stuff. And so over COVID, we had over 4,000 people on our virtual wine tastings.
Hang on a second now. Not at one sitting.
Oh, no.
Drinking.
The most I had was about 200 in one sitting.
That's not bad.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was busy.
How do you find these people? Because
they found us.
Really? But
yeah.
How?
So
I bet you it's that word naked.
Well, I'll tell you, we started doing a couple of things.
It's
nude wines.
Nude wines. I said at the very beginning, it was we always look for the cheap headline, and once it says naked or nude, we're in there.
We're straight in. And it's funny, we did a couple of things. We started Nude Wine TV, which was Facebook Lives and Instagram Lives. And this is at the start of COVID. People still say to us, that was the best part of my Friday for COVID. And so it's
when
myself,
you say we,
myself and my boyfriend, who is a golf professional by trade, and obviously that industry completely closed at the start of COVID, which was at the start of our business.
Sorry, I have to go down the little rabbit hole yet again. When you say a golf pro, is he a golf pro as in teaching, or is he on the circuit? Teaching. Okay.
Teaching.
Because if you were knocking out, if he was on that Saudi...
sure, I'd be having a great time over in Florida, I'd say.
I just saw that Tiger Woods, okay, different class. Tiger Woods was offered to go on to this new tour. $800 million. I could nuts, isn't it? Anyway.
They're all suing as well. Did you see that? Sure.
Anyway. Meanwhile, back in the real world. I want to know from you, because I'm really fascinated by this. How do you find these people, or how do they find you? Because, as I said, there are 1,000 other places that they could go to.
So, a couple of things. So, we're an online company only. And our presence, like our shop front, is a website. And then I would spend quite a lot of time on content creation for Instagram, Facebook. But like really when we started the business, and I say we, it was me and my boyfriend helping, and then he stopped the gym, and you know, slowly but surely the gym became a warehouse, or, you know, we put the overflow stock here. But people, referrals, social media. We were put, Karina Hardgrave, I don't know if you've ever come across her, who was the wine writer for the Indo, and now she's the food writer for the Times. Yes, I have seen the byline. Yeah, and she's been a great supporter. And she actually put in, do you know, it's just amazing a bit of how serendipitous it is. She put in, I would say, the last week of March to do wine tastings, and it was kind of, submitted 3 weeks in advance. I have trademarked a thing called the DIY wine course. And so she had put that in her wine column. And then 2 days later, I get a phone call from a chap from Salesforce saying, and this is the start of COVID, saying, God, we're looking for something to do for a team event. Would you do a wine tasting on Zoom? And this is at the start of everything. And like, as any business person, especially at the start, would say is, yes, I will.
What's the problem?
How can I fix this? So anyway, I said yes and wrote down my notes and said, I'll call you back with how this will happen. Panic. Anyway. But
that is the key. Say yes. And then start worrying.
So I said yes. And then I would say within a week, we had a page dedicated on the website to virtual wine tastings and a booking form. And there it began.
And out of that then, just to understand that, you book in for your virtual tasting and then you ship out the wine. And then I sit there sipping my wine, looking at you on Zoom, saying, oh, that's a classy little wine or whatever,
Yeah. And we would say about, we call them wine and crack. So it was all about having fun. It was infotainment, and I would always do a pre-call with whoever was booking the event. And it was always corporates actually at the start trying to do some sort of staff engagement.
I'd love to hear the Americans when you discussed wine and crack.
Oh, yeah, I know. And you know what? They all kind of laugh a bit guiltily and think, oh, Jakers. But I would have a call and I'd say, look, this is wine and crack. This is not for people who want to sit down and do a wine course. Because you might have two guys who are really interested and they have a cellar. And you might have 50% who will grab their bottle of Oyster Bay on a Friday night and that is it. So it is wine and crack, it's engagement, and that's the whole thing. And it's amazing that I still have people say, I remember that. And if you get like 3 points, if someone remembers 3 things and they cling to them and they love them and they feel like when they go to the dinner party, and instead of saying, I don't know anything about wine, they're like, oh, I know something. A couple of nuggets.
Now, it's a volume business. It has got to be.
Has to be.
And how do you, okay, COVID is over. We hope. How are you going to keep it going?
Oh, we had a huge July just gone. And I was saying to you earlier, we all had
They're
COVID.
They're normally about the same number, but anyway.
But we had 3 of us had COVID, and we had a great July. And it's funny because the customers are still there.
But how do you mind them?
How do we mind them? I would say, I'm like, do I tell them my secrets?
But that's what we're here for. Because what I'm trying to get is for people who are trying to build online businesses, it doesn't have to be in wine, but just little nuggets that you know.
So like there's a couple of things that are really obvious. Now my background, I'm in e-com since 2014. So now self-taught, but in e-com. And mad things. I was on an event with Paula and the Going for Growth community, and I was talking to one of the girls. She's got a really big business and she's never used an e-flyer, for example. Here are the specials. Get your delivery before like really simple things that every week someone says, okay, there's something new, or we're in your area. Do you need a delivery or whatever it might be?
O'Brien's are good at that.
Yeah. But
do you spit out that name?
Oh, Brian. No, and I know Lynn quite well. Like, it's funny, it's such a small industry. Like, you'd never criticise any. Like, really, you know, I mean, and we do totally different stuff to them. E-flyer, social media.
So you say social media, people just spit out social media. What do you actually do that actually works?
And so, God, like really, it's education with your sales tip at the end. Like if I am pummeling out, even if it's something as boring as like this wine, this lovely wine has 20% off. No one cares because it's 40%, or there is a wine 40% off in super value. But if you explain what makes the wine interesting, fun, special, unique,
the provenance.
A USP about it. People are curious actually about the wine. And you mentioned there at the start that I do stuff with Ireland AM. And the whole premise is actually, it's not a sales job where I'm on saying, this tastes like, again, Christmas dinner on a summer's evening, raspberries, strawberries. The next one, French rosé. This tastes like peaches and blood oranges. It's not just saying what the tasting note is, but it's explaining this is made from this grape, which the reason why this grape has higher acidity is because of something like this. And you have a mixture of people who are just interested. And again, they only have to pick up 1 or 2 pieces and they like it. And so there's a lot of creating educational content with the sales hook at the end, more than just blasting out something that's on sale.
Your business has expanded by 1 very recently with the addition of Fia.
Fia Summer. I actually wanted to call her Summer and I was told that it wasn't. It was... Hang
on a second now. You better explain who we're talking about. Your
baby.
Little baby.
My
your
little 6-month-old
baby. Fia Summer.
Yeah.
Because she's changed your business a bit.
Yeah. So in the middle of, so we had our first baby, which is obviously the wine business. And then along came, earlier than expected in our life plan, a baby. And so we actually, from this time last year, right up until when she was born in February, we're running a brand new business with a highly pregnant kind of face of the business. So quite unusual. You know, I was on TV actually and no one knew I was pregnant because you're trying to hide it because you're thinking, now, as much as you think no one actually wants to watch a pregnant lady push wine. Do you know? So I was trying to hide that.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, it's funny.
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. So I just never, only on the last one before I went off on maternity leave, because I couldn't hide it. It looked like I was having triplets. She was 9 pounds, a week early, 2 foot long. And she's the best thing ever. But yeah, so she was born on the 11th of February, and in that same thing, COVID ended. I went into hospital to have the baby and there was COVID, and I came out of hospital and not one person wore a mask. And I was like, what happened? You know, in such a small period of time. And then after that, there was the war in Ukraine. And so everything changed. On top of that, anyone who's had, you know, their first baby, it was just horrific, to be honest. The first 6 weeks, you don't know anything. You don't know your arse from your elbow. You're arguing with your partner and you've got this baby that just needs stuff.
And explain to those who might not even think about it, what is it like you're running your own business, minding a baby?
Very hard is, the first answer. You have to be agility is everything. Finding energy, especially we're only 6 months deep in it. I had
but
6 weeks maternity leave.
Okay, you did 6 weeks.
Yeah.
On your own time, or as the Americans would say, on your own dime.
On my own dime.
So then you went back for 20 hours a week, which is a truckload when baby is presumably beside you somewhere. No, thank God for grannies. Okay.
I'm sure every parent in the country says that, or says, where is the granny? I wish she was there in the background. So my partner's mother minds her now for 3 days a week for however many hours that might be. And my mammy comes down on the train on a Tuesday. And you can't do it without them, you know, and she's so young. So you just rely on your network. You know, this old phrase of it takes a village, and it actually takes the village to get the baby and the business and us going and staying profitable, paying the way. We both do, so there's both of us, and now the baby, 3 mouths have to be fed, and we have a staff member out of our little business. So,
and the little business, presumably like the little baby, will grow.
Yes.
What are the aspirations?
Oh God, it's funny because everything changed so quickly, and with the baby. So we're actually in a process now of re-envisioning what is the 3-year goal, the 5-year goal, and again, wine, we're a marketplace effectively. So we sell, wine that importers have, we sell it out. So how do you scale that?
Are you importing yourselves?
No, but I hope to very soon.
That's what
to be
I read,
honest.
yeah.
And it's funny, you have to nearly go abroad to the fairs to find the wine, because we were sent samples that we wanted to try and import ourselves. And you just need to go around and taste. When you're relying on people in Portugal, Spain, France, Italy to send you wine, I feel bad because it costs a lot of money to UPS or DPD your wine over for what are effectively small wine producers. And there's one, I have to tell you a story about one of them. But you just have to go to fairs and find them. So that is the big job for so many reasons, but mainly actually to be able to increase the margin, but also be able to offer really good deals to people. So, and what we find, because we're an e-com business, we have a warehouse, we don't have a shop front, we have totally different rates, staffing requirements, stock requirements. It's a good business management. And we work, one of the promises to myself was a 9-to-5 job. And I know that sounds like a pencil pusher, but in actual fact, when I was a much younger woman in London, and my dad's, all his family are in London, and on a Sunday, all my cousins and aunties and uncles got together for dinner, and I was working in a restaurant, and I missed it. And I was like, this is the only time I see the only people I know in this whole bloody country. And so I said to my boss, I don't work Sundays anymore. And that was it. And sure, it caused a bit of uproar, but there you go. And I spent Sunday with family, and I just feel like you have to, as a business owner, set down your own limits. What do I want out of this? What am I doing it for? And I want the weekends off. I want to do stuff when the other people that I can hang out with are off. whatever that looks like.
Can you go international? Because I presume
that's
there must be a mind bender with Brexit.
Yeah.
You're not going to do anything into the UK, are you?
Oh, we used to do a lot to the UK, and it was brilliant, and it was all
When you
to do
say a
with
lot,
corporate events.
I mean, you're only a very young company.
Yeah. We used to do a lot via corporate virtual events, and we probably would have sent, now a lot for us is probably a little for some people, 100, 150 parcels a week to the UK.
It's not bad.
Not bad at all. Not bad when the business was trading for not very long. It all stopped, and there was that period last year from January, February, March, where you're thinking, trying to figure it out, and in the end, I just didn't bother. You know.
So when I ask you whether you can go international, where else could you go?
So what I would like to do, and the plan is actually to do a lot more content creation, build up our YouTube channel, because we have a YouTube channel, build up the education piece on that and sell ourselves through YouTube, whatever that might be, products, advertising.
To the world.
To the world.
That's no mean ambition. Do you know who's brilliant at that as well? You may even know her, Amy Connolly.
Oh, I did. Well, I
Sculpted
saw
by
her product. It was where, I don't know what shop I was in. Must be Dunn Stores. It was the first thing on the right-hand side on the way in.
Is she in there? I don't know.
I'm sure it was Amy Connolly, because did she win, came second in Entrepreneur of the Year?
She did.
Yeah.
If she didn't win, I think
she won her category, but she didn't win the overall, if I remember
correctly. She has been on with us on the podcast.
Yeah.
And just in terms of somebody who's taken a product that people recognise new and just made it world.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you could actually do it.
Yeah. But it would be education that we'd be selling rather, because I'm not shipping what, like, we get people saying, oh, can you send us this? And I say, well, actually, I can just find where you can buy it there.
Yeah.
Do you know?
So the what you are selling is knowledge and entertainment.
On a bigger scale, to scale up and to export or to sell internationally, that's the only way to do it with wine is to...
And we always ask questions of our guests, such as how could Team GBS, those are our listeners, how could they help you?
Oh, how could they help us? I tell you what we need, like most businesses, is an e-com futurist as well. Where is it going? What does it look like? What's coming down the line? And it's hit and miss because I've spoken to a couple of them, but just... What is coming? What's the new big thing?
The metaverse. It is happening now.
Yeah.
And I've just been reading, I spent the entire week of this week reading all about it. We will be doing items about it, so you better listen to future podcasts, because I used to think, just this is another fad. I think it may not be. Now, if you're going to ask me what that really means, you'll have to listen to the podcast, because I haven't actually found the people who will be coming on yet. And so this is
for, like, by metaverse, you mean Facebook Meta, or?
It'll be an augmented or a virtual reality world that you will, instead of, say, going onto your YouTube, for example, you will be in a room with all of your clients, and they'll be sitting there chatting away to you, drinking their wine, and you will be with them in the room chatting. Or, as has been explained to me, you will go to a football match or rugby match or whatever with your pals, and you'll be in the stadium, not actually physically there, but it'll appear that they're all sitting beside you watching the same match, and you'll be shouting and roaring and waving or whatever, and you'll turn around and say that was rubbish or whatever, and that is what's going to happen. And when I'm talking about the future, in 24 months maybe.
Do you think so?
Oh, is that I think. I've just been reading, and it's happening, and all of the big e-commerce people are going into that, so that you'll walk into their store virtually.
Yeah, and there are websites like that already, actually.
You see?
Yeah.
It's already there.
Yeah.
And you will talk to the virtual assistant like you, who will say, you know what, this is a lovely wine here and whatever.
Yeah.
And, etc. It's actually up to you and your brain as to how you will apply it.
Yeah. And it's interesting because when the drone delivery guy.
It is Mana, Bobby Healy, who is another pal of the show.
Yeah.
He hasn't been on yet, but he will be.
So, and he was talking, and I was on I think it was one of the radio shows, about drone deliveries. And it's amazing. You have to remind yourself that rather than be threatened by it, you think, how can we embrace this in our business, because it is the future.
Oh, It's there now.
But it's there now. I know as a Galway and Balbriggan, I think he does stuff in. But it's amazing because rather than be frightened by something, you have to go, how can we bring it now? How can we go with it? How can we be first with them? Rather than be terrified and think, how's that going to affect us? How do we hide from it? How do we block it out? It's actually, how can you bring it and embrace it? And it's one of those things where, who do you hire? And it's...
I'm just going to ask you.
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean, sorry. But,
like right now.
And I'm laughing at myself. Do you know what? You would talk for Ireland, wouldn't you?
Oh, sure. They have to... yeah.
Because we are out of time. But you are going to talk to me and tell me, who would you hire in a heartbeat?
So there are two that I couldn't decide between. And it comes back to that... the e-com futurist, and because effectively we're a delivery company, we're a logistics company. So it would either be Gary V.
Okay, a lot of people like him, yeah.
Do you know what? He's brilliant in terms of he's just got vision and he backs himself for better or for worse. Very interesting guy. Or someone like Bobby Healy from Manus, someone who just like, what is the future of logistics just in terms of, so content or logistics? I don't know.
Did you listen back to Julie Garland on
the planes?
Yeah.
Oh, she's unbelievable.
But that's the future as well.
Yeah, she's unbelievable. It was amazing.
Did you hear her saying that, and in fact, your partner must have heard...
for anything.
No, but is it the Ryder Cup in 2027? Those guys are going to go up.
Were they on Harvard?
Yeah. 2027. This is 2022. I mean, that's just a few years away.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
That is also Michelle Lawler. Not of the naked, it's the nude wine.
The nudewineco.ie.
Thank you for saying that.
Organic, natural, vegan, artisan wines. Great wines, no notions.
Plus the fun of having her teach you and entertain you, because she is very entertaining and very teacher-like.
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, well, probably.
Michelle Lawler, thank you so much for joining us on That Great Business Show. And that is it from That Great Business Show, episode 99. As usual, we do ask you to share this podcast. But this week, we're also asking you to vote for the podcast at Irish Podcast Awards. Michelle, did you know that we have been nominated for Best Business Podcast?
I did. I saw it on LinkedIn.
Did you vote?
Do you know what? I didn't do anything.
If I had known
get to the end of the day and I'm like, the list of things I didn't do and the baby's in bed.
Seconds.
I will do it.
When you're watching TV, onto the phone, just press that little thing. And I'll also have the link up for you as well.
I was listening, so I wasn't pressing. Fail.
Make sure to send the podcast link via WhatsApp to all of your pals, because all they do then is simply click on it and then they get to the personal copy of Ireland's Best Business Podcast with Michelle on it. And do it right now, because you'll get busy, just like Michelle, and forget. So I ask, why is your business not advertising with us? Great companies like Big Red Cloud, Microfinance Ireland and Virgin Media do. Your business should do likewise. We have 6,500 followers on LinkedIn, 65,000 listeners. The best of the best in business we have, and you can talk to them directly via the podcast. We record here at the Dublin South Podcast Studios, where sound engineer Mark McCarthy and Peter Rice create the sound that helped us win Best Business Podcast nomination. If you want to record a podcast, use the team here at the Dublin South Podcast Studios. They are great. Remember that ad for Tony the Tiger?
Yeah.
It's great. If you'd like the media group to produce a podcast for your business, then talk to me. I am Conal O'Moran. Find me on LinkedIn. All of our great business insights and tips are brought to you, as always, thanks to our sponsor, De Facto Shaving Oil, the world's best all-natural shaving oil. They back us. Please back them. DeFactoShave.com will get them. And don't forget to buy Business Plus magazine, where we now have that regular column all about the podcast. So, from me, Conal O'Moran, Míle buchas for listening. Agus slán tamil.